Welcome back. I'm Kathryn, the Aerogarden Homesteader, and today is applesauce day. I really wanted applesauce put up in the pantry this year because I don't have any and I wasn't able to do some last year. So it is time to get some apples going. And yes, I know my peeler will core, but I didn't want the little slices. I just want wedges. They'll break down. I mean, each will break down, but it's easier to just cut it like this. So, in case you have never used one of these before, they're pretty handy. So there's a part that will core, and it will slice into rings. The rings will be about, what is that, like a little less than a 1/4 inch. You can get different barrels here. I don't have one, but you can. I've seen them somewhere. You can get different barrels so that you can have wider slices or thinner slices, but this is the one that came with mine. This is the peeling part, this is the coring part, this is the slicing part, and then there's this part here where you can push it in to retract the barrel. And there's also a part down here, I don't know if you can see it, down here, so you can push this part out of the way and not peel if you just want to slice and core. Let me get that set back up because I do want to peel today. I'm going to peel with the peeler because it goes pretty quick versus doing it by hand, and then I'm just going to core it with the apple slicer. I do not need them peeled perfectly, I just want to get most of the peel off, but I'm just going to throw the wedges in my big pot. If you have a slow cooker, you could do it in there. If you have a turkey roaster, you can do it in there. I don't know if I actually have enough apples for the turkey roaster. Whoop! Boy, that just leapt right off. I have my large 14, maybe 15 quart stock pot out, and I will be cutting the apples up and putting them in that to transport it out. I have the turkey roaster set up on the deck because there's probably no way I'll be able to fit 40 pounds in this big pot. It's a pretty big pot, but it's not that big. I'm actually a little concerned that I might be able to fit all the apples, if I'll be able to fit all the apples in the turkey roaster, but they will cook down and more space will be made available, so I'll just start putting them in here and then transporting them out to get them going as I finish up each bag. Today I have 40 pounds of apples, so I am working with Gala and Jonathan. Gala are pretty sweet, they're a good tasting apple, and the Jonathan are a slightly more tart cooking apple. It says it's a cooking apple, I mean it tastes fine as an eating apple. So do the apples that you like, or whatever you can get in your area. I am just going to go through and get these going. I currently have them going into the pot with about 2 cups of water. So I'm using 2 cups because I am using 40 pounds of apples. The water will eventually evaporate, so I'm not too concerned about that. But you want a little something in the pot just so that it doesn't scorch to the bottom while the apples are starting to break down. I put the stem end up against the holding part because then I don't have to worry about it, you know, either hitting this part or interacting or interfering with anything else. So just do how you want to do it. If you got to peel these by hand, that's fine. If you're lucky enough to have a food mill, you can just throw these in pieces, okay? So you don't need to break them down as much as I am, but you should at least break them into pieces. You can keep your peels and cores and make apple jelly with it. I have done that in the past. I will link the video. I think I have a video for doing it. I either did peaches or apples one year, so I can show you how that works. It's actually pretty fun. It doesn't require any pectin. You just add a lot of sugar and boil the crap out of it, so yeah, it's really sweet. But you will need a thermometer. You need a candy thermometer to make sure you get to the right temperature. So I am going to go through. I have 40 pounds of apples to get through. I probably actually have 35. We put some in the fridge for eating because apples are good. But yeah, no, we found a local orchard near us who sells the apples for like 50 cents a pound, which, you know, it's probably not the best price if you're buying a large bulk of apples, but, you know, we're only buying a few pounds here and there, and we want to support, you know, a local orchard. I don't know what happened with that one. So, one of these years, our apple trees will produce enough apples that we can just do this with our own apples. This year is not that year, sadly enough. So, I will just, we'll get going on this. Once I get a few in the pot, probably a few more. I will turn it on to like a medium-ish and then just get it going. And yeah, it's just a matter of cooking it down. So I'll bring you back when I'm at a point where I've got all the apples done and show you how everything's going. So today I learned these are both the same type of apple, but if you notice the one on the left is a little brighter in color than the one on the right. It's not because I peeled them at different times, which I did, but the one on the left is more tart than the one on the right. These are both a Jonathan apple, which are supposed to be a little on the tart side, but they do have a sweetness to them. It's supposed to be a good cooking apple. I don't really buy into any of that stuff because any apple can be made into a good cooking apple or a good eating apple. It just depends on what you like. But anyways, as I've been snacking on these while peeling them, I did notice that the whiter looking apples, the one on the left, are more tart than the ones on the right, which are like a beigey color, and they're more sweet. So it doesn't really help you pick apples out in the store if that's what you're looking for, but you know, if you're peeling them and snacking and you just want to snack on the sweet ones, now you know. Okay, so here's where we're at. This is just under 30 pounds of apples in my 18-quart turkey roaster. That is the other 10 pounds. It obviously didn't fit. And yeah, this is uncomfortably full. It's not even 40 pounds. It's not even 30 pounds. One of the bags was like, we took some out of the bag. So yeah, you might want to think about how many apples you can fit in your appliance, or you know, you can always put it in a roast pan and put it in the oven as well. But yeah, you might want to take that into account. I had it on 300 just to get it going, and I turned it down to 250. The apples on the bottom are softening up, but you know, obviously I don't want to scorch it or burn it or anything like that. So, and you know, eventually I'm going to get these in there. It's just going to take a little time. So I will keep you informed of how this is going along, but so far most of my time has been peeling and cutting. So 40 pounds of apples will give you about a gallon of apple peels, in case you are wondering. I did want to point out that none of the cores are in here. I didn't feel comfortable giving apple seeds to my chickens because they do have trace amounts of cyanide in it, and I like my chickens. They have been producing eggs for me, so I didn't put any in here. I did put in like bottoms that snapped off from the core. So there's no seeds in here. And you know, I'm not going to go through and pick out seeds just for them. They will be happy with this. My cores are in the garbage. I opted to not make any more apple peel jelly. I still have a ton downstairs, and I feel like I am the only one eating it. So there's just no point in me making any more. But in case you are wondering, this will fit, well, may not quite fit in a gallon-sized Ziploc, but it would probably do two, because the you would keep your cores as well, unless you don't like the bitter taste of the seeds, which it can sometimes leave in the juice. So depends on how you like it. But anyways, in case you're wondering, that's all of it. I also wanted to point out that you might want to wear an apron. Holy crap, I got apple juice, it just sprays everywhere. I had an apron on and I still feel like I got it, like it's all up my arms. I'm sure I got my face more than a few times. So yeah, this was a messy endeavor. The counters are going to be sticky, the floor is going to be sticky. I'm sure everything is just going to be sticky for a while. So it's been a couple of hours. I managed to finally get all of the apples in, but as you can see, it is heaping. So I'm going to give it a stir. That'll probably settle things down. All the soft ones on the bottom will start mashing down a bit, but I did have to turn this down to 200 because it was starting to stick to the sides a bit and get a little crispy. I don't think the apples should get crispy. They're supposed to get soft. So I turned it down to 200. Even though I'm supposed to, you know, eventually use an immersion blender, I get the feeling this might just end up going overnight. I'll just turn it down to like 150, let it truck along overnight, and then just deal with it in the morning. I mean, it's going to take a while. That's just part of the process of making applesauce, so. Okay, I did stir it. I don't think you can really tell, but I do think the lid will fit on slightly better now. I can see some of the apples. You can see some of the stuff on the side here. It's starting to break up a little bit. There's still some liquid in the bottom, which is probably good because then I don't have to worry about scorching or anything like that. But it is super early in the morning, and I just wanted to show you the progress on this. It's nice and soft at this point. It's ready to be pureed. It was probably ready last night, but that would have made for a really long day. This is a lot of apples, so I am just going to, I'll probably process this in a couple of hours just because I still have morning things to deal with, but this is where we're at. So I will probably turn up the temperature just a little bit, just to help break down the last little bit. But, yep, looks good. Smells great. Okay, well, it's been a few hours since that early morning check. I have turned up the temperature a little bit just now, so I can start getting this heating up just a little bit more so I can start canning it. Would like to have this nice and hot, but it does not need to be boiling. So some of the pieces, they are very soft, but they're still holding their shape. I don't know if that's a difference between the Gala and the Jonathan apples, but some of them have broken down really well, and some of them are still in the process of breaking down. So I have the immersion blender, and I will help them break down the rest of the way. That way when I put them in the jars, there are no chunks. So I'm going to have at it. This might take a while. Just for the record, in case you're wondering, this is all 40 pounds of apples. We took out a few for eating, so it's like 37 or 38 pounds, but it eventually did all fit. I don't know if you can see how thick this is. I might have to add just a tiny bit of water to thin this down just a little bit. I'm looking more for applesauce consistency. I don't want apple butter for this, but we'll see. There's still so many chunks in here. Like, I did not even get them all. Okay, here we go. I think I got most of the major chunks out. If I find any while canning, I will just deal with them then, or eat them. Why not? So this is going to have to come up to temperature for a little bit, but at the same time, I am also bringing my jars up to temperature, so it's going to be a double whammy. That's good. So I will probably bring out a spatula, try to scrape down some of the sides. Yeah, so safety measures for working with a turkey roaster. This is a lot of food, so please be careful of how hot it is and how much there is. I do have this on an inverted cookie sheet because this is on a plastic table. I don't want to ruin my table. I don't want to cause a fire either. And I will not be carrying this in the house. I will actually bring out my transportation pot that I used earlier, and I will get this divvied up, because I'm not going to be able to do this all in one batch. I will be doing mixed batches of quart jars and pint jars. So I'll just do the pints first, or the quarts first, I mean, and then I'll do the pints with whatever's left. So that'll just give me an idea of what I have. I might be able to move this after I have taken out half of it, but I'm not even going to try to like move it while it's full. It's going to be too heavy. Okay, I will probably put in maybe a cup or two of water. This is actually the time that you would want to put in your sugar. You can taste it, find out if you want to put in any sugar or not, and then make sure the sugar gets fully dissolved before canning it. I'm going to just leave it unsweetened because I'm going to be using this for a bunch of different things, and you know, if I put sugar in, it kind of limits what I can use it for, so it's not just for eating. I'm going to be like making applesauce cookies and, you know, just eating it with pork or whatever, so I want to have it unflavored so I can doctor it up when I need it, instead of I'm stuck with what I have. So yeah, I'm going to add a little bit of water to this. I'm going to stir this up a little bit and let it heat up a little bit more before bringing it in and canning it up. So stay tuned. Okay, so I brought in 8 quarts, actually slightly more than 8 quarts of the applesauce. So I put in about 2 cups of water just to account for any evaporation that may have happened over that long overnight stewing time. So it's still pretty thick, tastes really good. It is unsweetened, so, but that's what I'm going for. And my jars are all nice and hot, so it is time to fill. A little bit of water in there. So I'm just going to aim for a 1/2 inch headspace. I'm probably going to make it a little bit on the generous side because this stuff does have a tendency to expand a little bit, so, you know, I'd rather not have explosions. I do have some chunks. This is going to be rustic. That's okay. Always process it a little more later if I need to. Okay, that looks pretty good. So I like to go to the used store and see if I can find old jars. Old jars have like the really thick, heavy glass to them. It's really nice. They have got a good feel to them, but you have to be really careful to check for chips. been more than a few times where I've found like a really nice jar and it's chipped, and you have to make the decision of, do I want a really nice jar that will only be for storage, or do I want a really nice thick heavy jar that I can use for canning? So I've had to pass some up, unfortunately, but I got some really nice old jars from the thrift store that way. So of course we got all these apples, and our peach tree is now coming up ripe. It's a late peach and it's a freestone, so I will be processing some as peach puree, which I have done with the apricots, so you've seen that happen, but I will probably also do some peach pieces, which hopefully that'll be the next video, but we'll see. That's just a lot of work. You've got to peel them. So I kind of just like peeling peaches. Just like peeling tomatoes too. But yeah, sometimes it just needs to get done. So I might try to run a batch of, so this steam canner will hold 8 jars. So maybe I'll just run one batch of 8 jars of peach pieces and save the rest for puree. So like I said in the previous video when I made the puree is a little more useful to us because we can use it to make fruit leathers. And so we will probably do that to make some fruit leathers, and then just have some for eating if we want them for eating or cooking or whatever we want to use peach pieces for. And then if I need more for leathers, I can just puree them up. Really, pieces are pretty flexible to use. Okay, last one. So if you're new to picking out used glassware, definitely make sure you run your finger around the top. If you feel any chips, don't buy it unless you need it for storage and it's pretty. If you're not sure if you can feel the chips, lick your finger. I know it sounds gross, just, we'll figure something out, but get a wet finger. It's sometimes easier to feel the chips that way. Okay, so this is the last jar. I believe the processing time for pints and quarts was the same, and I will get that to you as soon as I can consult my book so I don't give you the wrong number. If you're new to steam canning, which I am, it's pretty easy to do, it's pretty quick, I love it. Definitely give it a try. You do need to leave the lid on while heating the jars. It does heat the jars a lot better. I didn't do that the first few times, so my jars were merely warm, they were not hot. Okay, so process pints or quart jars for 20 minutes. And then once my 20-minute processing time is done, I turn it off. I leave the lid on for 5 minutes because that's what I need to do for steam canning, but there you go, 20 minutes. I'm going to get that temperature up. I will probably put the rest of the applesauce that I have left over in here back in the turkey roaster. That way it'll stay warm. And then if I have any left over, I can put it in the fridge to eat. So I will show you how everything turns out after it is all done. So I ended up with so many jars of applesauce. It's actually pretty impressive. So this is the haul. I did have some that did not seal. I've got some that, so the dull sounding ones, the applesauce kind of expanded and filled the jar, and that's why it's dull sounding. But this one definitely didn't seal. You can also see that the button is up. It might be an optical illusion that it looks down, but it's actually up. And then there's some over here that it's kind of hard to tell. That, they all just sound so different. But anyways, this turned out really good. So the combination of Galas with Jonathan apples made for a really good unsweetened applesauce. I highly recommend it. I have done pizzazz apples in the past, and those were like really good applesauce apples as well. Highly recommend those ones as well. But really, in the grand scheme of things, pick an apple that tastes good to you and go with it. Blends always work well as well because you're kind of getting different properties that mix together. It is a rustic style. I've got some chunks in here, but this is how it turned out. I will have a little bit for eating, which is kind of nice, but I'll have a whole bunch that I can put up in the pantry for later, which is also really nice because I can't eat this much. Even with my kids' help, I can't eat this much. So I hope you found this video helpful. I hope you give it a try. Applesauce making is so easy to do. It's like a gateway drug, really. It's so good as well because you have more control over how it tastes and the thickness of it. And do you want sugar? Do you want some, cinnamon in there? Oh, Do you want strawberries in there? I mean, anything, you know, you can do that. That's the great thing about canning your own stuff. So anyways, I hope you found this useful. I will have some videos up at the end that you might also enjoy, and thank you so much for joining me today. I will see you next time on the Aerogarden Homestead.